Labor Day. I admit it. That's a tough. Thank you. Thank you, Diana. I'm aware, which is why we have an arms embargo.
Do you plan to do anything about the weekly hate marches here in Ottawa?
What are your comments on the marches?
We have weekly hate marches here in Ottawa, assaults on independent journalists.
Well, the Trudeau-Carney Liberals continue their virtue signaling campaign to bring tens of thousands of Gaza refugees to Canada. A shocking new poll suggests they're importing far more than just so-called war victims. They are importing the ideology of terror. A survey conducted this month by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research reveals that half of all Gazans believe Hamas's October 7th massacre of Israeli civilians, where 1,200 were killed and 251 were taken hostage, was correct. The brutal rape, murder, and kidnapping of civilians is cheered on by 50% of the population. And yet, despite these radical numbers, Canada's Liberal government continues to push ahead with plans to resettle large numbers of Gazans into Canadian communities, with little to no regard for whether those individuals share the extremist ideology that torched the region in the first place. Among the damning findings of the poll were that 43% would vote Hamas in a legislative election, 75% are satisfied with Hamas's war performance, 85% in Judea and Samaria reject disarmament of Hamas, a listed terrorist group. 47% support a unity government that includes Hamas. Let's be blunt. This is not a refugee crisis. This is a national security risk, and it's one the Americans are already concerned about.
American senators are expressing concerns that Canada's temporary visa program for Gazans could increase risks of terrorists entering the U.S. 6 Republican senators wrote to America's Department of Homeland Security asking for more scrutiny at the border. In a statement, Canadian Immigration Minister Mark Miller says the temporary visa doesn't allow travel outside Canada, adding the IRCC works closely with partners including the Canada Border Services Agency, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Canadian Security Intelligence Service, as well as our closest partners, including the United States, to carry out security screening to help identify those who might pose a threat.
There are also far too many violent Islamophobic attacks on mosques and other places of worship and community centers across this city and across this country. And I'll be clear. If any Canadian can be threatened when simply exercising a fundamental freedom, then all of our freedoms as Canadians are at risk.
Canada is struggling with a broken vetting process and a government obsessed with open borders. Canada was just very recently the launching pad for a refugee who was an ISIS butcher and his son to plan an anti-Semitic terror attack on Toronto.
Nous sommes d'accord avec Hamas, nous sommes d'accord avec tous.
Nous ne sommes pas d'accord avec Hamas.
Now, we're supposed to believe the government can filter out Hamas sympathizers from a population where 3/4 cheer on Hamas tactics. And don't expect Carney to mention any of this to the Liberals. The only problem is Canadian Islamophobia and not the actual ideology of a group that throws gay people off rooftops and uses schools and hospitals as rocket depots. Once again, the Liberal government is putting globalist optics over Canadian safety. We don't need Hamas ideology in our communities. We need a government with the spine to say no. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. Canadian cities are undergoing a plague of weekly pro-Hamas protests. If these people are not citizens, they have no business promoting their vile anti-Semitism and extremism on our streets. If you agree with me, go to deporthamas.com.